Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Sales Unscripted podcast. This is Margaret Henney.
I'm Brian Neal here.
And we are your co-hosts, and actually we are in a very special location right now. You may or may not be able to hear this, but there is the electric hum of cars in the background. You know we're in Indiana, so...
Hang on.
What?
First of all, we have a live studio audience. You clap for yourselves, please, nice and loud. Got about 75 salespeople here.
I forgot to say that, too.
Did anybody catch what Margaret just said? What? The electric hum.
It's not electric.
No, there's gasoline. There's really expensive gasoline in those cars.
I mean, it feels electric.
Thank you. Good save. Yeah. One of these days, we pray not that the cars are probably going to be electric going on the track. We hope to God that never happens.
Someone from Pennzoil is coming around right now, and they were like, never again.
Yeah, seriously, it's a bad thing. So, no, this is one of our favorite places, is it not?
Absolutely. We love it. We talk about May and Indy all the time.
Yeah. And we were recording a podcast in the winter, and we started talking about the track. And I'm like, you at the track? She's like, yeah, I love the track. Me too. And I'm like, we should do an event at the track. And lo and behold, all these people are here.
It all came to fruition.
It's really wonderful.
This is how it works.
So we're going to do, we got a great topic today. We've got Matt Compton. We've had him on before. He's really smart. And he's from southwestern Indiana, too.
Making that face.
So that's a thing. But I did want to talk, Margaret, you don't know this, so you and I usually text.
Yeah.
Right? We usually don't call each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
So, but on the way here, we had to talk to each other, so we called each other's phones. I've never heard your voicemail message.
Oh.
The message, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you know Margaret, if you ever call her voicemail, do you know what it says?
I have no idea.
Most people don't know what their message says. They record it like in, 2004. It says, "Hi, this is Margaret. I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message." Doesn't that sound like a message from like 1989? Like, well, it's over there and I'm having dinner, so we can't quite reach where the cordless phone is.
Stop.
I can't come to the phone. Like it's sitting over in some spot and I can't get
in
there.
my pocket.
I just thought it was funny. Like, this is Margaret, this is my mobile phone, call me back. But did you know it said that?
No.
Isn't that funny?
I haven't listened to it in probably 15 years, so that's
I
probably why.
Call my grandma Dorothy. It's like, hello, I can't come to the phone right now. No, I say that charging.
You got to be careful calling people anymore, though, because you call them and immediate thought when somebody calls my phone, I look down and I know, I'm like, oh God, what's wrong?
Totally.
Right.
Especially if you don't.
Emergency.
Yes, because if you don't know people, right? It's crazy.
I usually preface it when someone picks up the phone. I say, I'm calling, not texting, because I'm driving. And then they're like, okay, now I get it. And I'm like,
hands-free.
Sorry, I'm calling you.
Okay, so you heard the voice of our guest. So Matt Compton is the founder of Philo, ridiculously smart human being, and has a great story, a founder story, but also came up with an idea that we're going to talk about today called buyer enablement. Buyer enablement. And raise your hand, studio audience, if you've heard of the term sales enablement. If you've heard the term sales enablement, everybody.
Yes.
Who's heard of buyer enablement? One person, you just heard about it on the podcast, didn't you? See? So we're doing a podcast the other day, and he brings this idea to us, this buyer enablement idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have thought of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And then if you're listening at home, you're thinking, how does this apply to me? And if you're in this audience too, same thing. We want you to get some takeaways. So you want to start a little bit about how you came up with this idea in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it's basic ideas. I mean, how many people here are seeing sales cycles lengthen over the last 3 to 6 months, or decision making slow down from people over the last 3 to 6 months? And then when you do that, it really came down to when we start asking people why, everybody was just talking about themselves. Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we need. We need this at this stage. We need this at this stage. You talk to buyers, and then they go through and what they're experiencing. And many times the experience is bonkers, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And it really just because we have entire teams of people and organizations thinking about how do we help sell or sell, and that's great, and we should do that. But there's really nobody whose core job is to wake up every morning, go to bed every night obsessing over how do you help the buyer buy? How do you help enable the buyer to get what they need done at any point in the sales cycle? So once we just started thinking about that, I don't know, it took off on its own.
It's really, really great.
Well, it's funny too, because think about it, like for sales, we're always trying to, we've got processes for everything, and we have to have them, right? It's really important, but it's all about serving us, our team. Okay, we got to vet this, we got to hand it over to this person, and this is their territory, and whatever. We complicate it, and we spin ourselves in circles trying to make it easier and better for our sales team, but we're kind of forgetting who it should be all about, which is the buyer, right?
Yeah.
How can we make it easier for them to make their decisions and to buy, which it's like, hey, how hard do we want it to be for people to give us their money and be happy with what we're providing them?
Exactly. And so we think that doing what we need is also doing what the buyer needs, but then it leads to all these really weird things, right?
Yeah.
So like, how much time and energy do we all spend just trying to get people to talk to us, right? Just trying to get people to talk to us. We spam people and send cold emails.
No.
We put gates in front of all of our content to try to give us content. We come in and make people sit and talk to us at events.
Yeah.
We do everything we can to try to get people to talk to us. And then when you finally get somebody to talk to you and you say, great, we finally got them to talk to us, they jump on a call, and the very next conversation is, okay, now convince me that you are qualified for me to talk to you, right? Which totally makes sense for us because we need leads. Great, how do we get leads? Then once you get leads, well, we don't want to waste our sales team's time with leads that are unqualified. So then the next thing we have to do is try to qualify them, but you put yourself in your buyer's shoes and the experience is nuts.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And talk about that a little bit, that chaos, because when we were talking about this the last time, we talked about how many of you, and it's not everybody in the room, but I know some of us, how many of you have like 2 or 3 people involved in the sales process, where they talk to maybe an SDR, BDR, lead generation, then it goes to an AE, and then it goes to a client success person, then to an account manager, right? Or if you're in, there's people here in banking, so it goes to the credit department, and so talk about that experience on the buyer side.
Yeah, so on the buyer side, we think about all of our stages linearly, right? They go here and then and it's not linear at all. There's really,
Yes.
with buyer enablement, the way we coach about it, there's 6 core jobs that every buyer has to do. I don't care if they're buying a $20 subscription or they're paying $1 million for software and services over the course of the year. Every buyer has to do 6 core jobs, right? And those 6 core jobs are, and I think Thomas, who, for people here in the room, Thomas is around here. We've got some things I think he dropped in your on your table. You guys can see these, so don't feel like you have to hurry up and write all these down. You can just scan the QR code, and this stuff is there for you. Those 6 core jobs, one, they have to be able to identify and articulate what the problem is in the first place, right? What do they even need to solve for?
Yep.
Number 2, they need to be able to find what potential solutions are out there to their problem. 3, they need to be able to choose which one of those they believe is right for them to solve their problem. 4, they have to validate that it can do, not what you say, it's easy to say, well, can we do what we say we can do? They need to validate it can do what they believe or want it to do.
Yeah.
Then they need to be able to get the resources they need, the support internally, and then they have to execute agreements, right? Now, some of those it may all happen within a 15-minute period, but then some of them, a single one of those jobs could take 6 months, right? So when you look at it, it is not linear at all. They jump between these. They do all of them in parallel. They're jumping one to another as the deal kind of takes them. So what we do, we just work with our clients to say, hey, let's look at it from that perspective. Let's look at each of these jobs. And if you do, and if you guys scan the QR code and go, there's a bunch of questions, or really they're statements. If these statements are true for you, that job is probably a problem, right? So you just dig in, look at the problem, and 80-20 rule, there's usually 1 or 2 of those jobs that's contributing to 80% of your sales cycle. Figure out where the pain is, and then when you look at it that way, how do you solve that pain is actually usually not difficult.
Yes, and you're talking about the pain of the job that they're doing.
The pain from the
that
buyer.
thing, yes.
That's exactly
like
right.
when I get to, if it's contract stage, like this happens too, we have this great process. They have to execute a contract, an agreement, and then I get this 19,000 page single space document with a bunch of crap in it. I'm like, why are we doing this? It was so great dealing with you, Matt. And then you send me this. Like, I just had that one of my clients who's
Sorry.
not here. They have a division in Poland, and the Polish culture in business is very detailed. And their VP of sales is not from Poland. He's like, look at this contract we're making our clients sign. Their clients, they're like families in South Africa, and there's like 19-page single-space document. It's like that, and then people are like, I'm not signing that. And
Exactly.
then kill the deal.
Exactly.
That's one of the jobs.
Exactly. We had one client that we worked with that when they came to us, they said, look, here's my problem is every single one of our clients forces us to do a proof of concept or proof of value. These things take weeks. It's basically doing half of our implementation for free, upfront, pre-signature, so expensive. We have to stop doing this. And we got to figure out, we're going to stop doing it. We're going to start telling them no. When we flipped it around, we said, look, I understand why that's a problem. Super expensive. You don't want to be putting all those resources. They may not even sign with you and move forward. The issue is they don't have a high enough level of confidence that you can do what they want you to be able to do. So the problem is the validation step. So you can avoid doing your proof of concepts, but how are you going to solve that problem for the buyer? Because they need that validation. They don't feel the level of confidence to be able to sign up for you without seeing it. Once we framed it around that, it totally changed the conversation of we're going to take this away from the buyer, and instead man, maybe we can even solve that as a part of the first call. Maybe we can solve that before the first call by by creating an experience for them. Completely change the conversation.
I really appreciate you guys put together the worksheet here too, and I encourage you guys definitely to scan the QR code and do it, just because it's complicated. Like, even I'm sitting up here and I'm just like looking between both of you like, oh my God, my head's gonna explode. There's so much to think about, right? So you're kind of like, can talk yourselves in a little bit of circles. So it's nice to have something where you've got a little bit of structure that you can follow and be like, okay, let me wrap my head around this. What's working for us? What isn't working for us? And just be able to name that thing, because otherwise, I just think there's a lot going on for both buyers and sellers.
Exactly. You don't have to do all 6, right? Like, you don't have to focus on how do we optimize all 6.
Right.
Just ask yourself the questions, figure out the 1 or 2 that's causing the problems. We say do it for yourself first. Which ones are the biggest problems for us? Because if not, when you think about it from the buyer's perspective, you're going to gravitate to your problems anyway.
Yeah.
Do that, then set it aside, make the assumption that you're wrong. And then look at it from the buyer's perspective, and that just kind of clears your head. And once you do, there's 1 or 2, and you can jump in and just focus and say, okay, when's the right time in order to solve it? What does the buyer need? What information do they need? Where do they need it? How do we deliver it to them? Does it need to be a live conversation or not? You start solutioning, and it falls out pretty quick.
I got a question, Matt. I wonder, and I could be totally off because I haven't scanned the QR code just yet. But would it be helpful to fill this out with someone who is a client? Like, to be like, hey, like, let's sit down, like, who you really trust, who's been through your process, because I don't know about you, I have blinders on, right?
Absolutely.
Until I can get someone to take a look and be like, no, this is how the experience was for me. I can sit there and make a lot of assumptions about what's good or bad or why we do things, and almost making excuses. Well, no, we do it like this because of blah, 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 blah. And then I just move on and don't even think of it as an issue. So have you ever had someone sit down with a trusted client and say, can you help me fill out this worksheet and say what your experience was?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we're working with people, we actually require that, right?
Okay.
And it's usually us or somebody else who isn't directly doing the selling or doesn't have that relationship talking to them, because it takes the emotions out of it a little bit. But it's really good to get that internal perspective, and then many times when you talk to the buyer, you realize you were completely wrong.
Totally.
Right? You were what the big issue, you come in and you're talking about, okay, what are we going to do in the first demo? We're going to show them this. We've got a position against this competitor. Here's our strengths and weaknesses. And the client or the buyer can't even articulate what they understand. They have a problem, but their big issue is they can't articulate that internally enough in order to get support.
You're over here doing a feature dump and they don't even know what the problem is yet.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And how to talk about it. So yeah, absolutely. You don't really get that until you talk to them and figure out what's their internal struggles, what's their buying team look like, what support do they need, et cetera.
Okay.
We're talking with Matt Compton, the founder and CEO of Philo. And so you answered what question I was going to ask. So do it with the customer too. Do it to yourself too, right? Go through your own buying process. If you want a takeaway today, if you've not done this in a while, go through your buying process from start to finish, from the time you get a marketing deal all the way through, and look for the experience and see what it's like. I had an experience yesterday that shocked me with this. This was very interesting to me as someone, to proof point what you're saying, but it's a consumer deal. So I ordered the microphone that Margaret is holding in her hand from Amazon 3 days ago. It showed delivered on Wednesday. I went out of my house. You ever done this? Look around, it's not there. First thing you think of, somebody stole it. Someone stole my freaking microphone. So I'm panicked because I know I had this deal. I wanted that microphone. So I'm going, I've never done customer service at Amazon. I'm thinking, you ever try to get any hold of anyone at Google? Like, there's not like a call number. Well, I go to check my order. It's a little chat thing, but it says, if you want to talk, press this and we'll call you. I pressed that, they called. I was talking to a human in like 20 seconds.
Incredible.
And that human found where my package went wrong. She said the carrier actually, it took her like a minute and a half. The carrier scanned it as delivered by mistake. It's on a truck tomorrow. It'll be there. Then it wasn't there yesterday. I'm like, dang it, it's like 5 o'clock last night. I call again. Same deal. The guy's like, the driver is a mile from your house. I'm going to shoot the driver a note to make sure that they know that it's an expeditious sort of thing, that you need this. And I thought, love him or hate him, Jeff Bezos has this shit figured out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I was shocked at how good that was. And look what happens when you have a great experience. You tell hundreds of people. So that to me is what this is about, analyzing what is that buying experience. Bezos has removed all the friction at Amazon, all of it, even when it gets screwed up. The other thing was, no questions asked. They're like, do you want a refund? I mean, I could have had that. These things aren't cheap. I could have just kept it and said I lost it. They go, okay, here's a refund. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that goes back to the strategy they had from the very beginning. You read their early shareholder letters, and he's been talking about that from the very beginning. The whole thing is design. What does the buyer, what does our customer need at any point in the process? And then what is the most efficient way to deliver that to them, the most efficient way for them to deliver that to them, not for us. Because if it was for us, you'd be having the Google problem trying to get somebody on the phone.
Totally. Or any other thing you've ever bought from anybody. I mean, geez, oh, Pete. I think from today's talk, we're going to start Blind Zebra Prime. If you guys want to sign up for Blind Zebra Prime, there's a QR. I'm kidding. Kind of, maybe not. So this is awesome. So let's do one to do. So everyone's sitting here, they got the tool, they can do that. Even if they don't have the tool, what's one thing everyone in this room can go do that will help them on this path to better buyer enablement?
Yeah, I would say the one thing, evaluate those 6. If you leave here and you're like, gosh, I don't have that thing, I don't remember what the 6 were, one thing you can do is just put yourself in your buyer's shoes and think about the stages from their perspective. I mean, you can come up with your own jobs. These things aren't rocket science, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that your buyer needs to do, and then what does it take for them to accomplish them with you, and then how do you make that better?
Fantastic. Hey, thanks a bunch, man. It's great. Matt Compton,
Thanks, Matt.
Glad Matt's here.
Thanks, everybody.
That's great stuff. If you aren't in the room, we'll get you the QR code. We'll put that up on one of our
we'll put it in our
social
show notes.
medias, in our show notes. So that's it. That's it. Great addition. Thanks, Matt, for being with us today, and we'll see you next time on the Sales Unscripted podcast.
Yep.
Cheers.